Oh, yeah.
What's up, friends? Welcome back to Kanika RN, and today we are going to talk about 5 test-taking strategies. So last week's video, I talked about what you can do to become a more effective studier, tips that have been helpful for me. But this week, we're going to focus on the 30-ish minutes before the test, all the way through the test. Also, if you haven't subscribed, I'm waiting. Please go ahead and do that. There's going to be new content every Saturday. I am committed to making new, hopefully useful content for you every Saturday. Please comment below what kind of videos you'd like to see, any issues you're struggling with, any tips, advice, resources, whatever you need, I'm here. So please comment below. Please, 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 please subscribe. Thank you. All right, on to today's video. So 5 test-taking strategies. Obviously, there is no substitution for good preparation. My 5 tips aren't going to cram any, new information into your head. That is something that should already be done. But if you are someone who has trouble with recall due to anxiety, just the idea of tests make you stressed out, then I think these 5 tips are going to help you. So tip number 1, be comfortable. Wear something that you feel comfortable in. Dress in layers. That is one thing that's very, very useful. If it is summertime and you go into your hall, you know it's about to be 32 degrees in there and feel like a meat locker. And if you show up in your little Daisy Dukes and a tank top, you're going to be freezing, or at least I would be freezing. Maybe you won't be freezing. And it'll be harder for me to focus. Conversely, in the wintertime, when you come inside a classroom or a hall, you know it's like 83 degrees. It feels like the Bahamas in there. And you peel off and you peel off and you peel off and you peel off until you're walking around in your underwear. So make sure you're comfortable. Dress in layers, I think, is the best. Wear a t-shirt, have a jacket on top of that. Depending on what season is, maybe another layer on top of that. So that way you can adjust. At least you can make your environment more comfortable. Another thing is carry like a little bottle of water with you if you're allowed to during your test. I know that when I get nervous, perfect example, when I get a little anxious, having like a little bit of water to sip on, my throat gets dry, that can help me kind of, feel a little more relaxed. And the other thing is go to the bathroom before the test. Make it so that you're giving yourself the best chance right off the bat, which leads me to very directly and very hand in hand with tip number 2, which is get there early. It is the worst. Should show up to an exam 5 minutes after it started, 3 minutes after it started, or even right when it started. Getting there early can alleviate so much stress. And when I say early, I'm talking 15, 20 minutes early. Get there, pick out your favorite desk where the feng shui is good, sit all the way as far as you can, away from Snivelly Nose Sam, sit far away from the person that you know is always going to be cracking their knuckles. You probably know who the people are that you need to avoid if you can. Get there early. So that has 2 benefits. One is it'll give you time to kind of recenter, relax. People will be asking last minute questions. Professors might go over like, hey guys, make sure you don't confuse this formula with this formula. Make sure, I would go ahead and just review, skim through these notes really quick if you're in here. Sometimes professors will be like, wink, wink, remember this fact, remember this tidbit, remember this information. It has been very useful for me whenever I've gone to a test early. Little bits of information that I'll pick up. I've been like, oh, yeah, I remember. We just talked about that like 30 seconds ago. So yes, definitely get there early. A lot of times the professor will give you instructions about, listen, there are 3 essay exams or 3 essay questions, and you only need to do 2 of them. And had you not been there in time, you might just get there right when the tests are being given out and would be like, oh my God, I have to do these 3 questions, where in reality you only had to do 2. So getting there early, that is the best tip. The best, if you don't take away anything else from this video aside from subscribing, take away getting to the test early. That will do so much to alleviate your stress. And the more you get to know me, the more you watch my videos, I will always say there's a weird one. I'm a weird anomaly, so all of my videos are going to include a tip or something that's a little bit like off the cuff, like, what does that even mean? Why does she think that's useful? This tip is very useful for me. Take it with a grain of salt. It might be useful for you, might not be, but I'm just going to throw it out there because for me it's very helpful. When I'm very nervous about something, sometimes it helps to kind of put things in perspective of like, okay, what is the worst that can happen? If I do badly on this test, I might have to work harder on the next two. Worst case scenario past that, I may fail this class, have to take it over. Worst case scenario, XYZ. And also it helps me to think of, okay, this is one test among 4 in this class, among, 30 tests I'm going to take this semester, 20 tests I'm going to take semester, span of nursing school, I'm going to take 100 tests. This is just one. So sometimes when I kind of have that perspective of like this one test, this one quiz, this one paper, it's not going to change the outcome of my career, my future, whatever. Like I said, for some people, this may not be a good thing to kind of think about, okay, this is the absolute worst case scenario. But for me, it kind of weirdly puts things in check and makes me feel like, okay, this is one test. No matter what, this is just one test. So all I need to do is do my best on this one, and then we'll take it from there. I don't need to blow it up in my head of like, this is the end all be all if I don't do well. Number 4, you want to, as soon as you get your paper, there's 2 things I'm going to recommend that you do. The first thing is skim it very quickly. Read all the instructions, get an idea of how many questions there are, whether they're multiple choice, whether there's any math problems you need to work through and solve, whether there's any essay questions. So formulate a plan. Take 2 to 3 minutes of formulating. Okay, I have 2 hours. I have 50 multiple choice questions. I'm going to try to be done within an hour. I'm going to try to be done with 30 questions. So I leave myself about 10 minutes at the end review. Just formulate like a very rough, okay, this is what I'm going to do, A, B, C, this is how much time I have. And the second thing I would recommend that you do is do a little bit of a mental dump if that's helpful for you. And you're like, why is this girl talking about dumping? So what I mean by a mental dump is if you know that you're going to be needing any formulas, any dates, any processes, any facts or information that you know that you think you might forget or you might get them confused. A simple example would be like a pharmacology test. Go ahead and write down milliliters to ounces, pounds to kilograms, whatever else you're going to need. And just go ahead and just write down those 2, 3, 4 things. And don't take more than a couple of minutes, 2, 3 minutes. And just having that so you're not having to recall that when you're actually solving can be very, very helpful. So skim, form a plan, do a little mental dump, and that should help you. And number 5. So this one, there is kind of varying opinions on this particular tip. I would say definitely try to plan to leave some time for yourself to review questions. At least 10 to 15 minutes, depending on what kind of exam it is. And don't let one question become your kryptonite. Don't let that one question, like, you get so fixated on that you just don't move past it for 5-10 minutes. And then you realize you're at the end of the test and like, oh man, I still have 7 questions left and I only have 10 minutes. Don't let that happen to you. If you don't know the answer, spend a minute on it. If it's not coming, skip it, move on. Leave yourself time at the end to go back through anything you skipped, just revise things. One thing that I have a lot of problem with is I'm a very fast reader, and no, this isn't like a humble brag. I'm a very fast reader, but I don't comprehend well the first time I read. Because I skim so quickly, a lot of times I will misread or misunderstand. So a lot of times I have to read a sentence or a paragraph 1 or 2 times before I fully comprehend. So a lot of people say you shouldn't change answers. You don't change your first instinct, which is true unless your first instinct was based on false information. So let's say I've read a question, I put A as the answer, and I realize like, oh my gosh, I misread the question altogether. That's not the right answer. C is the right answer. Then definitely change the answer, obviously. In terms of changing your initial instinct, this is what I would say. Only change your answer if you are solidly convinced. I would say, to put a random number on it, like 75, 80% convinced. Let's say your first instinct is to put A, and then you're going through and you're like, oh, but it might also be C. I don't know, maybe it is A. I don't know, maybe it's C. If you're kind of playing this mental seesaw in your head and it's 50-50, don't change the answer. If you are very sure of like, no, I'm sure C is right, or I'm very solidly, 80, 90% sure that C is the right answer, then I would go ahead and change it. But other than that, go with your first instinct and just breathe. More than anything else, more than any other tip I can give you, just breathe, one question at a time, one test at a time. Don't blow things up too much in your head. Please comment below any of your test taking strategies. I would love to know about them. I'm sure other students, whether they be nursing students, any other kind of students, if you have any tips that you feel like could be useful, please comment below. Please give me any comments, tips, suggestions for future video ideas, anything at all. I would love to hear from you. And until we meet again, my friends, always keep it sweet and salty, and I'll see you next time.
Until